All right, I'll be right back.
Yeah, no problem, man. Take your time. No rush. Got things taken care of. All right. I don't got much time to do this. I need to make sure it works. This is my one shot. I can get out of here with this one. Come on, answer it. Yes, hello. Is this the glue factory? Yeah, listen, I got some livestock I need to be converted into glue. If you can do that, I hear you do. No problem. That sounds great. Listen, do you take people? Well, I know it's a fucked up question, but I need to know, do you take people? Come on, it works. Yeah, come on. 4 legs good, 2 legs better. We can make this work. Do you take people, okay? I need to make somebody disappear if you could.
Dalton!
Yeah.
Are you calling Elmer's again?
No, I would never.
Hey, shut up. What happened to all my socks? Welcome to Strip Cover Lit. I'm Adrian Fort.
And I'm Dalton Gentry.
And we're here with this week's book review. Dalton, I almost called you Animal. What did we review this week?
I've been actually psyching myself up to be like, don't say Animal House. Don't say Animal House. It's classic this week. We are doing George Orwell's Animal Farm. A lot of people have read this one. This is a classic. A lot of high schools teach this. And it is an important historical literary piece. So let's talk about it, because we finally tackled it. Have you read this one before we did?
I did read this one in high school.
Okay. I haven't not.
My junior year.
Okay. So, first reading compared to second reading.
First reading, I was just so taken aback by the characters. We'll get into this later. It was the three good
What's
things.
good and what's bad?
Okay, 3 good things. This is a very quick read. Quick enough that the weight of it all builds, but not so quick that you miss anything.
Okay.
The wit involved in this piece is razor sharp and machete strong. Orwell builds these animals into such complete characters that this book can be referenced by single lines.
Okay.
How many times did you read through this and think, I'm going to remember that line?
There's a lot of good lines in here. There really is. This is a timeless piece. Although this piece is set at a historical point, and it's about a historical point in a certain nation's history, this is timeless. This represents any oppressed person.
And every movement that's ever been.
Every movement. The ending to this piece is a vicious and perfect circle, and I love it. And the choice of the word comrade. Without the choice of the word comrade, this is just the oppressed people. It loses that historical. But once they say comrade every 5 seconds, you know what it's about. You get it. And you smoke cigars when you talk about it because of that. Bad things.
Along those lines, the allegory is so thick that if you're familiar with the history, there are parts of this that, while creative, fall flat.
Okay.
You know what's coming next. You're not sure what mask it will be wearing.
Okay.
I hate to even mention this because it's so well done and it's so impactful, and I try to stay away from this sort of criticism. But on an emotional level, I hated the fall of Boxer.
Because you identify with any character who is yourself.
Well, I mean, from the first time I read this, I was like, that's my boy. That's my boy.
My boy, Boxer.
And outside of that, my final criticism is that outside of Boxer, there's very little emotional pay dirt here.
Okay. Bad things I have, you are beat over the head with the concept of this novel. If you forget what this novel's about, just wait 3 pages. It'll remind you. In that case, it becomes extremely repetitive. It's the same things happening over and over and over and over and over. The ending is not as dramatic as I wanted it to be. I wanted flair, I wanted some big panache, some coup, and it just flickered out on me.
We're going to have to go rounds about that.
Okay.
Because this is about as explosive an ending as I think.
Oh, it's always disagreement.
It's transformation. Okay,
let's at least
quotes.
start with some quotes.
From my new second favorite character in this novel, one that I didn't even remember being in here, Benjamin the Donkey. He seldom talked, and when he did, it was usually to make some cynical remark. For instance, he would say that God had given him a tail to keep the flies off, but he would sooner have no tail and no flies.
Adrian only likes characters who are Adrian.
Why would I like any other character?
I'm just saying.
On 17, Comrade, said Snowball, those ribbons that you are so devoted to are the badge of slavery. Can you not understand that liberty is more than ribbons? On 26, "Never mind the milk, comrades," cried Napoleon, placing himself in front of the buckets. "That will be attended to. The harvest is more important. Comrade Snowball will lead the way. I shall follow in a few minutes. Forward, comrades. The hay is waiting." So the animals trooped down to the hayfield to begin the harvest, and when they came back in the evening, it was noticed that the milk had disappeared. On 55, and I mean, I could just go on and on.
The man who highlighted the book.
Yes.
But one more from you.
"Comrades," he said, "I trust that every animal here appreciates the sacrifice that Comrade Napoleon has made in taking this extra labor upon himself. Do not imagine, comrades, that leadership is a pleasure. On the contrary, it is a deep and heavy responsibility. No one believes more firmly than Comrade Napoleon that all animals are equal. He would only be too happy to let you make your decisions for yourselves. But sometimes you might make the wrong decisions, comrades. And then, where would we be? Suppose you had decided to follow Snowball with his moonshine of windmills. Snowball who, as we now know, was no better than a criminal." Now, my argument for these quotes is not that they are good quotes, but that they are important ones.
Okay. I have a couple.
Okay.
First, start with just a beautiful image. "And so the tale of confessions and executions went on until there was a pile of corpses lying before Napoleon's feet, and the air was heavy with the smell of blood, which had been unknown there since the expulsion of Jones."
Wow.
Oof. And second, on page 43. "Not sentimentally, comrade," cried Snowball, from whose wound the blood was still dripping. "War is war. The only good human being is a dead one. I have no wish to take life, not even human life," repeated Boxer, and his eyes were full of tears. Which makes me say that Boxer's a fine character. Absolutely a fine character. So, besides the fact that this is just absolutely riddled with beautiful writing and beautiful quotes, what would you like to talk about? Do you want to just get Boxer out of the way?
No, because I think it's important to start somewhere else.
Okay.
On a reader's level.
Okay.
For me, I found myself having to give alternative readings in order to stay interested in the novel. Because we've all got at least a passing familiarity with what it's about.
Okay.
I was on a second read. I knew where most things were going. I had forgotten some things. But I think it's interesting to give alternative reads to something that is so clearly written about one thing. Is there a feminist reading to be had here? Can mankind represent masculinity? And they were oppressed.
Yes.
Feminist women were oppressed for so long, and they've got this surging towards something, right?
Again, I will go back to saying this is a timely novel. This is a novel about an oppressed people. You can insert whatever group of oppression you want into this, and it will be relevant. So yeah, I think you could have a feminist reading from this, absolutely.
Can humankind then represent the 1%? And this is an uprising of the lower classes.
They're absolutely, yes.
Not just in the way it was in Russia, but I mean on
what I would like to call a Sanders reading of this.
Yes.
You can absolutely have that.
In the Birdie reading. Can humankind represent the church, with Moses as the fundamentalists? Now, on page 8, we get the quote that the farmer is the lord of all the animals.
Okay. You get the idea and the image of the shepherd, as the farmer as the shepherd. So yeah, again, any oppressed group of people.
Right. Now, what's interesting here, say you're giving the 1% reading, say you're giving the feminist reading, say you're giving the church reading. In all of these, now I mentioned Moses as the fundamentalists when I talked about the church as humankind. But really, in all of those readings, Moses could represent the actual church, as he does in this novel.
Okay.
In this novel, Moses represents the church. The church was on the side of oppressing women. The church was on the side of oppressing the poor. The church has been on the side of oppressing everything below that 1%, because who runs the church? Rich people.
Money.
Right? So I think that it's interesting to note that in all of those readings, every single one of them, Moses could represent the church.
For some reason, I just got stricken with church humor, and I just wanted to drop it in, but I'm just not going to go there. But you are correct. The church is a very oppressing being, and I think that could be tied in very relevant.
So if you're not going to go there, where would you like to go?
I think the use of the word comrade.
Comrade.
Because we are going to say that, yes, this can be a feminist reading. Yes, this can be this kind of reading. The choice of the word comrade, which is used frequently and fervently, makes this Russian. This sets this historically. Because without that, this is no more than the story of the oppressed. With that, you are taken to a place, and you are taken to a time.
Okay.
You got a face of disagreement.
Well, sure. I mean, I think that's a very surface level reading, though, isn't it?
I think so, yes. But if you are reading this and you don't know what this is about,
okay,
you picked Animal Farm off the shelf, the choice
random
of the word comrade forces you to think, oh, Russian, maybe.
Okay.
That sounds very Russian.
So you think that's something that Orwell planted?
Absolutely. Absolutely necessary. This distinguishes what oppressive event he's speaking about.
Okay.
But I still think this could be easily a call to action to any oppressed people. This could be inspiration. But then the heartache at the end.
Well, you mentioned that it could be every struggle ever for equality. But what happens when we have equality? All animals are equal, but some are more equal.
Some are more equal. Which is a beautiful time. This is my first reading of this. So when the, commandments of the animals are plastered, I like that. This is beautiful. And in the end, they change to all animals are created equal, but some are more equal than others. That is just wonderful. And I absolutely love what that represents, because this is, again, that vicious and perfect circle. Because no matter what group we're talking about, what form of oppressed group, although you can get away from the oppression and you can improvement, you can make strides, there's always going to be something attempting to drag you back to where you came from.
Well, you know, and that's one of the things I wrote down here is that isn't it all movements that go that some people fight for equality while someone else is conniving for especially.
Yes.
Someone's always redefining words and changing rules.
And it's just little tidbits that are sprinkled in throughout here that just absolutely confirm that. The milk and the apples.
Yes.
They all enjoy the milk and the apples, but the milk and the apples are necessary for this group of people because of the intellectual
They're
strain.
brain foods.
They're brain foods, comrades. They're necessary that we consume them in order to better serve you, to serve our purpose. This highlights so beautifully the concept of brainwashing, essentially. And being from the United States, in a very political time right now with the upcoming election, which has been very different than any other election, and a lot of talk of the 1% and the oppression of the 99%, I think this is timeless and this rings true.
You're rooting for a Napoleon, you're rooting for a Snowball, you're rooting for... Who's Bernie?
Who's Bernie?
Is Bernie...
Bernie is Boxer.
Major. Bernie's old Major.
You think so?
Bernie's Major.
The first one who says we must uprise, but then he falls.
And he dies.
And he dies.
Because he's very, very old.
I was going to say Boxer
white
because he's the best character and they eventually had to put him out to pasture. He just didn't make it.
So since you're a fan of me springing things on you,
okay,
and because you're talking about how Adrian only likes the things that Adrian likes, we've got this scene on page 61 where the entire farm is trying to get this giant boulder up a hill, right? When the boulder began to slip and the animals cried out in despair at finding themselves dragged down the hill, it was always Boxer who strained himself against the rope and brought the boulder to stop. To see him toiling up the rope inch by inch, breath coming fast, the tips of his hooves clawing at the ground, the great sides matted with sweat, filled everyone with admiration. What does that look like?
What does that look like?
From ancient mythology, what is Boxer in that setting? Pulling the boulder.
Atlas?
No. Well, sure. I mean, I think that's certainly a way to look at it.
Okay.
But we're talking about Russia. We're probably talking about nihilism. Is or is not Boxer right there Sisyphus?
I'm not familiar enough to speak.
Sisyphus was a character who is very tied to the nihilist movement because the nihilists related every man's life to the Sisyphean struggle of Sisyphon was cursed to push a boulder up a hill for all eternity. Well, when he got to the top of that hill, it would just roll back down the other side. So he had to push it back the other side, and it would roll back down this side. That is Sisyphus.
Okay.
And that is the nihilistic struggle of man's daily life. All you're toiling for is to get that rock up there, and it's just going to come back down the other side.
Oh, so you think Boxer is a direct reflection of nihilism?
I think
He's
so.
the representative of nihilism.
I certainly read it that way.
And you
Prove me wrong.
And you certainly said earlier that Boxer is by far your favorite literary character ever.
Maybe, yeah.
Reasons for this. Now, if Boxer's your favorite literary character ever, and Boxer is...
Boxer, by the way, would have been a Slytherin.
Jeez.
Very hard working.
The one pushing the boulder up a hill, the one keeping the camp together. What is the significance of him being basically sold out?
As it relates to this, or as it relates to the character in general?
However you want to take it. However it relates to nihilism.
As it relates to nihilism, what it is basically you spend your entire life pushing that rock up the hill until you die from it.
Yeah. And eventually they take you to the glue farm.
Yeah. And your entire life is wasted because all you were doing was pushing a goddamn rock up a hill. That is what Sisyphus means to the nihilist movement.
Now, from the piece itself, I think it's very important to take from that the one man who caused admiration, the one man who would inspire the other animals to push forward and to keep working, as soon as he was weak, was taken out.
Which is
Because that is a threat to our power.
Which is a very nihilistic thing, right?
I think so. Russia and nihilism. Thank you very much. It's exactly what I needed today.
Well, that leads right back to the quote on page 26 about the milk disappearing, does it not?
I agree with you on that.
Because as soon as people are gone, you have to assert your will, you have to assert your power, as soon as you can get away with it.
Now, the circular nature of this whole thing, regardless...
Explain it a little bit.
Okay, so, they want to overthrow Jones. They do.
Yes.
And they establish new dominance. But in the end, they're back where they started, with another ruling leader.
With another ruling class.
Another ruling class.
It is all the pigs.
But it's back where they started. It's so circular. Is that saying that no matter what you do, there must always be an entity, a class, whatever you want to say, in charge? And if they're in charge, are they better than others?
It seems to be an argument about it without being an argument for it.
Okay.
Right. Orwell in this novel seems to be saying that it is inevitable without saying that it is preferable.
Okay.
Correct? That
Yes.
it seems to be what will happen whether it should happen or not. Even with the greatest intentions at the beginning of this movement, the movement is then squelched by someone clawing for power.
Okay. Now, you said you wanted to argue the end with me. So let's
Yeah.
argue the end.
Can we take a small detour?
Small
first?
detour, please.
This page, this quote on page 123, I might get tattooed on me. But alas, his strength had left him. That is when Boxer collapses.
Yes.
Now, I know that this is a very Russian piece, but Boxer is obviously the working class in this,
Oh,
right?
yes,
I mean, that's what
absolutely.
Boxer represents, is the Russian working class.
And that is stated many times that he is the workhorse, basically.
Right,
the
right,
working.
Right. But essentially, Boxer is every hero ever, right?
Okay.
I mean, he's taking the work upon him that he is outmatched for. Because by God, I am going to be good enough to do this. That's Captain America. That's
Okay.
Harry Potter. That's Batman. That's every hero that you ever read about as a child who is just simply better and rises above the circumstances.
And what was the quote that you got from this again?
But alas, his strength had left him.
That's it.
That's
That's
it.
what resonates with you.
Well, and then
so
you
what
get a
you're saying,
semicolon.
Adrian, at 1,000 subscribers, you will tattoo that on you.
On my leg.
On your leg.
Yeah.
And I'll get a Vonnegut tattoo.
Yeah.
For 1,000 subscribers.
I don't know if 1,000 subscribers is going to... We haven't come through with our promise for 350 subscribers yet.
Well, by the time we get there, then we'll have plenty more to say, let's get tattoos! Sorry, I had to get off on that tangent for a second.
Well, and here's the thing. This is a hero. This is a true hero. And this is our every hero, right? And Orwell has the guts to crush him, or rather, to let him crush himself.
I think it's very telling, though, when you look at the hero's tale. If you want to go, the hero saved the day, whatever, that's fine. But the more touching, the more moving concept is the hero must fall. The old wise master must fall so the new generation can learn from him and finally fix it.
But they do not.
But they do not, which makes this piece even more
Nihilistic.
nihilistic. Thank you. I'm just going to let you start speaking for me.
Also, by the way, nihilism.
Nihilism. So, the ending. I think it fizzled.
You think it fizzled?
I think it fizzled, but you said it's more than that.
Of course it's more than that. They literally, the pigs in this novel literally taught themselves, to walk on 2 feet, which was laborious for them, as you can see by the fact that even when it's been practiced, it is not natural.
Yes.
But B, they go so far as to change the commandments, it wasn't even a commandment, was it? It was their song.
Their creed.
Their creed. 4 legs good, 2 legs bad, into 4 legs good, 2 legs better.
This is the ascent to power, and this is the change. This is, dare I say, the member of the community who gets a little attention and gets a little power and becomes the pillar of the community who tries to maybe copyright something. It's like we've discussed, like 2 brothers or something who have done this before.
Well, it's interesting that you bring up family as well, because I think there's another reading in here. If you want to read Jones as a drunken, abusive father, what happens?
Okay.
You grow up to be a drunken, abusive father.
Okay. It's circular, no matter how you look at it.
Yes.
And now I say it fizzles. It does fizzle to me. I expected something dramatic, something grand to happen, and it's just back to the same circle. But on the other hand, that makes it more powerful. That makes it more upsetting and more dramatic.
You know, I wish I'd gotten these quotes, because they're utterly, it's an utterly creepy scene when you are in this and you are in what John Gardner called that vivid and continuous dream of this novel. And you're watching these pigs walk on 2 legs.
Yes.
Tell me that's not horrifying.
It's terrifying, and it's unnatural.
And how is that fizzle? How is that not grand?
It's... I don't know.
You don't know.
It's not the grand that I was wanting.
I don't care about your feelings, Dalton. What can you prove?
I think it had to do with
the
strife of the war, the battles that they had. They're exciting to the reader. They're clearly engaging. They're the peak. I expected some big major coup. Maybe it was a failed coup where the pigs take out most of the farm. And you do get a portion of that where they slaughter them.
This is worse.
But
because
like
you're not dead, you're living on, but working. You're not just. This is not the idea of a hell as being just the dark place. This is a toiling hell.
Yes.
And guess what? All of your children are there too.
Like I said, it is worse. It is more upsetting. But it's not what I wanted. I wanted some big bang at the end.
You wanted a happy ending.
Maybe I did.
You wanted a happy ending.
Maybe I did.
Well, when Boxer got sold to the glue farm, you should have kissed that goodbye.
I want you to know that eventually I'm just going to start doing this show by myself. And when everyone questions, like, where's Adrian? Where's the quality of this show? I'd be like, glue farm.
I wanted to make a point and end up in the show agreeing with myself.
Anything else you'd like to say about Animal Farm?
You know, it's interesting. A lot of these quotes that are just diabolical, and you read them on a different level, and you know it's talking about something bigger and something evil. And one thing that took me aback was on 92, we get the quote, "All the same, there were days when they felt like they would sooner have less figures and more food," which harkens back to the tail and flies quote, right?
Okay.
But what's different about that is that feels very corporate America, does it not?
If I may, because I think it complements yours. They could not remember. There was nothing to which they could compare their present lives. They had nothing to go upon except Squealer's list of figures, which invariably demonstrated that everything was getting better and better.
Now, is that not maybe... Now, outside of the corporate realm, because I think that's very corporate, right?
Okay.
But also, when we talk about that familial place, right? When you become your drunken, abusive father, you can't remember the other time.
Okay.
When you become an adult, you can't remember that. When you become an adult and enter the workforce, you can't remember that simpler time.
Okay.
Right. So I think that it is necessary when reading this book to engage in alternative readings for it.
All right. I can get behind that. If I may say, the choice to do the animals, necessary at the time so that Orwell could publish this and get his message out. I think it also dampens this enough so that the reader can digest it. Because if we were dealing with human beings in this piece, and we were getting an actual, very non-fictional account of this, this would be one of those readings that would just tear you apart. This would demoralize you, and this would ruin you. But the choice to make them animals dampens it just enough. There's just enough of that playful fantasy that you can digest it. You still get everything, but you aren't just dead by the end.
Right. This sort of dances the line between satire and allegory, right?
Yes, I think so.
Beyond just having a one-for-one translation, there is something there to laugh at.
Yes. So, I liked Animal Farm. I did. What should I read next?
I would recommend Simply a Girl Diaries by George Saunders.
Okay.
I think that if you were into this heavy sort of clunking allegory, I would love to see you read that and sort of watch you digest the things that play there and say what you really think that piece is about.
Okay. Now you talked about satire and allegory a little bit. I think you should read Gulliver's Travels. I think there's some similarities here. I think if you enjoyed the way this piece was written, you would enjoy Gulliver, although much more difficult of a read, in my opinion.
Now, what would you give this? What would you rate it?
I enjoyed this. I didn't love it, but I really enjoyed it. So I'm going to give this 88 legs out of 100.
See, I gave it 90 Forbidden Brews out of 100 because I don't think you can read this and not take a quote or two with you.
No, there is beautiful writing.
So I think that
absolutely
this
gorgeous.
is absolutely A-level literature.
It is. But I'm gonna give it a B+.
Okay.
Because I don't know. Like I said, everything that we've read recently, I've just devoured and just loved and enjoyed. So maybe if I would have had this on like a week of Gunslinger, I would have given this 105.
Right.
But still, a damn fine read. Absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
So, if you've read Animal Farm, let us know down below what are your thoughts on it.
What would you recommend based on it?
That's
we
actually
sort of
a good
struggled
question.
with this.
That is. I've struggled with a lot of them lately because I just want to be like, oh, well, you should read Animal Farm again. That'll be good for you. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and definitely give us a follow on social media as well. Facebook at StripCoverLit and on Twitter at StripCover.
What is our Instagram?
StripCoverLit.
Okay.
Where you can see pictures of things that we do on occasions when we remember to update.
Yes.
Yes.
Always family friendly, I think.
Kind of.